Every day the world loses legends, icons whose lives shaped our culture, our memories, our hearts. From actors to musicians, pioneers to visionaries, their stories deserve to be remembered and celebrated. Welcome back. Here we honor the lives, achievements, and legacies of those who passed. The news arrived quietly, almost like a scene fading to black. On April 22, 2026, it was confirmed that Dean Tavoularis had passed away at the age of 93. There were no loud headlines at first, no sudden noise. Just a deep, steady realization spreading through the film world that one of cinema's most important creative minds was gone. For decades, his work had lived behind the camera, shaping stories without ever stepping into the spotlight. Yet his presence was everywhere. In the shadows of a room, in the texture of a street, in the silence of a carefully built set. His vision helped define what audiences would feel, even before a single word was spoken. Dean Tavoularis was not a household name for many, but his work was known by millions. He was the creative force behind the visual worlds of films like The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and Bonnie and Clyde. These were not just movies. They were experiences. And much of that experience came from the spaces he imagined and built. Born in May of 1932, Tavoularis grew up with a quiet curiosity. He studied art and design, slowly finding his way into the film industry. It was not an easy path. Like many artists, he began with small roles, learning the craft step by step. But what set him apart was his attention to detail. He did not just design sets. He created environments that felt real, lived in, and deeply human. His breakthrough came when he began working with director Francis Ford Coppola. Together they formed a partnership that would change cinema forever. In The Godfather, Tavoularis built a world of power and silence. Dark rooms, heavy furniture, and careful lighting all worked together to tell a story beyond words. A colleague once said, "Dean didn't just build sets. He built emotions into every wall." It was a simple statement, but it captured something essential about his work. In Apocalypse Now, his vision expanded even further. The chaos of war, the depth of the jungle, the feeling of isolation, these were not easy things to recreate. But Tavoularis approached the challenge with patience and care. Every detail mattered. Every space had a purpose. Actor Martin Sheen once reflected, "Walking onto those sets felt like stepping into another reality." Dean made it impossible not to believe. His words echoed what many in the industry felt but often struggled to express. Despite his success, Tavoularis remained a quiet figure. He avoided attention. He rarely spoke about his achievements. Instead, he focused on the work itself. For him, the story always came first. Over the years, he received recognition from his peers, including multiple Academy Awards for Best Production Design. But even then, he carried himself with humility. There was no sense of pride in the spotlight. Only a quiet understanding that he had done his job well. As news of his passing spread, tributes began to appear. Filmmakers, actors, and fans shared their memories. Many spoke not just of his talent but of his kindness. One former collaborator shared, "Dean was gentle. He listened more than he spoke. And when he did speak, it always made the work better." Another tribute read, "The worlds he created will never fade. They are part of cinema's soul now." Even on social media, younger filmmakers expressed their respect. One wrote, "We study his work without even realizing it. That's how deep his influence goes." It was a reminder that his legacy extended far beyond his own time. Tavoularis did not chase fame. He did not seek recognition. But in many ways that made his impact even greater. He worked quietly, carefully, and with deep respect for the art of storytelling. His passing marks the end of an era, a time when filmmaking relied on patience, craftsmanship, and a deep understanding of human emotion. In a world that often moves too fast, his work reminds us to slow down, to notice the details, to feel the space around us. There is something lasting about the worlds he created. They do not disappear when the film ends. They stay with the viewer, shaping memory and emotion in subtle ways. As the film community reflects on his life, there is a shared sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the stories he helped tell. Gratitude for the beauty he brought into the world. And gratitude for the quiet example he set. Dean Tavoularis may no longer be here, but his work continues to speak. In every frame, in every shadow, in every carefully designed space, his presence remains. And perhaps that is the true mark of his legacy. Not just what he created, but how deeply it continues to be felt. He will be remembered not as a man who sought attention, but as one who gave everything to the art he loved. A quiet architect of cinematic worlds, whose vision will live on for generations to come. The news was confirmed with a quiet sense of loss. Andrew Hacker, a voice known for questioning the way society thinks and functions, has passed away. His death marks the closing of a long chapter in American intellectual life, one shaped by curiosity, courage, and a willingness to ask difficult questions. For many, he was more than a professor. He was a thinker who challenged people to look deeper. To not accept ideas simply because they were common, but to pause, reflect, and question. Andrew Hacker spent much of his life in classrooms, teaching political science and guiding students through complex ideas. Yet his influence did not stop at the university level. Through his books and public discussions, his thoughts reached a much wider audience. He often focused on the structure of American society. He spoke about race, economics, and the way systems shape everyday lives. His words were not always easy to hear, but they were honest, and they invited people to think in new ways. One former student shared, "He didn't just teach lessons. He changed how we saw the world." It was a simple memory, but it reflected the lasting effect he had on those who learned from him. Throughout his career, Hacker remained committed to open discussion. He believed that progress came from conversation even when it was uncomfortable. He encouraged debate, not silence. A colleague once said, "Andrew never feared disagreement. He welcomed it. For him, it meant people were thinking." That approach made him both respected and, at times, controversial. But he stayed true to his purpose. His writings became widely read, especially among those interested in understanding the deeper layers of American life. He had a way of explaining difficult ideas in clear language. This made his work accessible to many, not just academics. As news of his passing spread, tributes began to appear from former students, fellow scholars, and readers. Many remembered not just his intelligence but his calm and thoughtful nature. One tribute read, "He asked the questions most people avoided, and because of that he helped us grow." Another message shared online said, "His voice will be missed, but his ideas will continue to guide us." Despite his public work, Andrew Hacker lived a relatively quiet life. He was not driven by fame or recognition. Instead, he focused on ideas, on learning, and on teaching others to do the same. His passing is not just the loss of a professor. It is the loss of a voice that encouraged reflection in a fast-moving world. A voice that reminded people to slow down and think about the systems around them. In a time when opinions often move quickly, his work stands as a reminder of the value of careful thought, of listening, questioning, and understanding. Andrew Hacker leaves behind more than books and lectures. He leaves behind a way of thinking. A quiet challenge to future generations to look deeper, to ask why, and to never stop learning. And in that way his presence remains. Not in noise but in thought. Not in headlines but in the minds he helped shape. He will be remembered as a man who believed in the power of questions. And through those questions his legacy will continue to live on. The news was confirmed in a quiet moment, the kind that feels heavier than words can hold. Roderick Martin, a name once carried across roaring stadiums, has passed away. His death marks the end of a powerful chapter in professional football, a chapter defined by discipline, strength, and moments that fans will never forget. For years he stood under bright lights, surrounded by noise and pressure. Yet he remained calm, focused. A player who let his actions speak louder than any headline ever could. Roderick Martin was known for his precision on the field. Every move had purpose. Every play showed control and awareness. He was not just fast or strong. He was thoughtful in the way he played, always reading the game, always one step ahead. His most remembered moment came during a historic Super Bowl performance. It was a game filled with tension where every second mattered. In that moment, Martin rose above the pressure. His performance became a turning point not just in the game but in how he would be remembered. A former teammate once shared, "When the game was on the line, you wanted Roderick there. He didn't panic. He didn't rush. He just delivered. It was a reflection of the trust he built over time. Born with a passion for the sport, Martin's journey was not easy. He worked through long training sessions, early mornings, and the constant demand to improve. Football was not just a career. It was a commitment he honored every single day. As he moved through his career, he earned respect not only for his skill, but for his quiet leadership. He was not the loudest voice in the locker room. But when he spoke, people listened. A coach once said, "Roderick led by example." You could see it in how he trained, how he played, and how he carried himself. That kind of leadership left a deep mark on those around him. Off the field, Martin kept a low profile. He valued privacy and time with family. He understood the weight of his career, but he never let it define him completely. There was always a balance, a sense of calm beyond the game. As news of his passing spread, messages began to appear from across the football community. Former players, fans, and coaches all paused to remember a man who gave so much to the sport. One tribute read, "He was part of a golden era. A player who showed what focus and heart truly look like." Another fan wrote, "We didn't just watch him play. We felt every moment he gave on that field." These words carried a shared feeling: respect, gratitude, and a quiet sadness that such a presence was now gone. Roderick Martin's impact goes beyond statistics or records. It lives in the memories of those who watched him play, in the young athletes who studied his moves, in the teams that grew stronger because of his presence. He was part of a time when football carried a different rhythm, when players built their legacy through consistency and discipline, when every game was a test of both skill and character. Even as the sport continues to evolve, his influence remains. His style of play, his calm approach under pressure, and his respect for the game continue to inspire. A former rival once reflected, "Playing against him was never easy. But you respected him. He made you better just by being there." It was a rare kind of praise, one that spoke to his true impact. There is something lasting about athletes like Roderick Martin. They do not fade with time. Instead, they become part of the story of the game itself. Their moments are replayed. Their names are remembered. His passing reminds many of how quickly time moves. The cheers, the lights, the energy of the stadium, all of it feels distant now. But the legacy he built remains steady and strong. In the silence that follows such news, there is space to reflect. To remember not just the player but the person behind the uniform. A man who worked hard, stayed humble, and gave his best when it mattered most. Roderick Martin will be remembered for his strength, but also for his quiet presence. For the way he carried himself with dignity. For the way he let his work define him. His story is one of dedication. Of rising to the moment without losing balance. Of leaving behind something meaningful for others to carry forward. As the football world moves ahead, his name remains part of its foundation. A reminder of what the game once was and what it can still be. In the end, the stadium lights may fade and the crowds may grow quiet. But the memory of Roderick Martin does not disappear. It stays alive in the heart of the game, in the stories shared, and in the respect he earned along the way. He will be remembered not just for the games he played but for the example he set. A steady force under pressure. A quiet leader in moments of chaos. And in that memory his legacy continues, strong, lasting, and deeply respected.